Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to talk about the Democratic National Convention, which just happened from August 17th to 20th last week. Before you jump down my throat, the Republican National Convention is in the next few days, so that is for next week's video. Well, if you have been following my channel, you probably can tell that I have a strong interest in US politics, and I noticed that I'm not the only one. More and more Vietnamese in Vietnam and abroad are paying more attention to whatever is going on in the US. So I want to use my channel as a platform for young Vietnamese to learn and discuss about politics as well as practicing their English. Right now, the presidential election in 2020 is the hot talking point. So the Democratic and Republican National Conventions are great opportunities for you guys to learn about American politics culture. I'm going to comment on some important speeches made by the Obamas and Joe Biden. So stay tuned and watch until the end of the clip, okay? Without much further ado, let's get on it. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, unlike previous conventions, this year, the national conventions will be moved exclusively to TV and online platforms instead of having, hundreds to thousands of people gathering in a crowded convention center. This were the Democratic National Convention, or the DNC, for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Does it look like a good idea in the current state of America? Probably not. If you had been following US politics, you probably have known that Joe Biden has become the candidate for the Democratic Party after his only opponent left, Bernie Sanders, suspended his campaign in April. In June, Biden also passed the threshold of 1,091 delegates to win the nomination. And 2 months later, he picked Kamala Harris as his vice presidential nominee. So, the Democratic National Convention is simply an official announcement of Biden and Harris' nomination from the Democratic Party to the entire US and the rest of the world. Still, this is more than just keeping up with the traditions. It's also a campaigning opportunity to woo more voters, especially undecided ones. Historically, DNC was just a big meeting for hundreds to thousands of people gathering and casting their vote for the party's nominee. But the rule then changed. The nominee was soon decided after the primaries, which is the internal election of the party itself. But it's to try to maintain somewhat of the tradition by singing the national anthem. And you will see that someone will call to order.
I'm hereby calling the fourth session of the 48th Quadrennial National Convention of the Democratic Party to order.
And someone will read out Pledge of Allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The themes of the first night of the convention was We the People. So that's why you saw a lot of average Americans, normal people voicing their concern about the current state of America, rather than just some party leaders and officials having their speeches. I think one of the best speeches probably came from Christine Urquiza, whose father died because of COVID-19, and she blamed Donald Trump and Arizona Republican Governor Doug Ducey for her father's death.
My dad, Mark Anthony Urquiza, he had faith in Donald Trump. He voted for him, listened to him, believed him and his mouthpieces when they said that coronavirus was under control. So in late May, after the stay-at-home order was lifted in Arizona, my dad went to a karaoke bar with his friends. A few weeks later, he was put on a ventilator. And after 5 agonizing days, he died alone. My dad was a healthy 65-year-old. His only pre-existing condition was trusting Donald Trump. One of the last things that my father said to me was that he felt betrayed by the likes of Donald Trump.
I actually looked up her father's story. Her father followed the first stay-in-shelter order. But in late May, the Arizona stay-at-home order ended and didn't get extended by the Governor Ducey, so people resumed their normal lives, and that including her father. Her father then tested positive for COVID-19 on June 11, but then on June 30th, he died at the age of 65, despite having no underlying health condition, according to Christine. As you can see here, it's no surprise that Biden reached out to Christine's family to speak up in the DNC. He knows that many families feel betrayed by Donald Trump and his administration, found downplaying the pandemic and encouraging people to resume normal lives when the pandemic was still raging on. This has resulted in a spike of new coronavirus cases and definitely makes some people have second thoughts about Donald Trump. This is a way to reach out to independent voters and Trump supporters who have suffered from the pandemic. I'm sure in the upcoming Republican National Conventions, they might find someone who is the victim of some policies enforced by the Democrats or someone who had been affected by the Black Lives Matter violent protests as a way to get independent voters to lean right. Another highlight of the night was probably from the speech of John Kasich.
America is at a crossroads. Sometimes elections represent a real choice, a choice we make as individuals and as a nation. Many of us have been deeply concerned about the current path we've been following for the past 4 years, because we're being taken down the wrong road by a president who is pitted one against the other. I'm a lifelong Republican, but that attachment holds second place to my responsibility to my country. Joe Biden is a man for our times that call for all of us to take off our partisan hats and put our nation first for ourselves and, of course, for our children.
I think the interesting thing here is even though John Kasich is a Republican, he is well known to be anti-Trump. It's quite common for people from different sides who disapprove of their party leader or president to speak at the opposing party's venues. Yes, in America, you don't have to stay loyal to your party. Usually people would. But if you don't like to follow the herd, who can stop you? Obviously, Biden and John Kasich are trying to persuade conservatives and Republicans who really hate Trump to put partisanship aside and vote for a Democratic candidate. The last highlight of the first night was probably from the speech of Michelle Obama, former First Lady.
Being president doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are. A presidential election can reveal who we are too. And 4 years ago, too many people chose to believe that their votes didn't matter. Maybe they were fed up. Maybe they thought the outcome wouldn't be close. Maybe the barriers felt too steep, whatever the reason. In the end, those choices sent someone to the Oval Office who lost the national popular vote by nearly 3 million votes.
Ooh, I think this is what pissed Trump off. She really reminded people that he actually lost the popular vote. If you didn't know this, the majority of American voters didn't vote for Trump in 2016. He actually lost to Hillary Clinton by nearly 3 million votes. Trump, in fact, did become the president of the United States, but it was because what is called the Electoral College. I can explain this in another video. And the popular vote is basically the total votes of American voters who actually cast their votes that year. And they didn't pick Trump. That is a fact.
Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is.
You know that phrase, it is what it is, right? If you don't, well, it's been circulating around the internet for a while now. Seeing Trump's infamous interview with Jonathan Swan from Axios a few weeks ago. You can watch it here. When Swan confronted Trump on the number of American deaths because of coronavirus, and Trump responded with,
"It's under control." I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is.
To some people, that's just straight up disrespectful, irresponsible, and even shameful. Coming from the mouth of a president who is the leader of a country that has the highest coronavirus death in the world. And the only thing he could say was, "It is what it is, c'est la vie." To others, especially the Republicans, they might say, "Well, what can he do? Who would know that thing could be so nasty? Give him a break. He already did his best already." If your country has more than 100,000 COVID deaths, will you be angry at your government, or would you be more understanding, and supportive?
leaders from across the country.
Move on to the second night. The theme is Leadership Matters. So no wonder this night was full of speeches by government officials and party leaders, from the former president Jimmy Carter to Bill Clinton. But the biggest controversy of the night was from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If you don't know who she is, you can watch my video on a documentary on her right here. She's a Democratic congressional representative for a district in New York, and she's considered a star for the young and progressive movement. And so hear what she had to say.
In a time when millions of people in the United States are looking for deep, systemic solutions to our crises of mass evictions, unemployment, and lack of health care, and out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
What? What is she doing? Doesn't she know that Bernie Sanders already lost and Biden is now the candidate of the party? Why is she nominating Sanders? Lots of Democrats were attacking AOC without understanding that she was basically following the tradition, a rule of the convention. Historically, in the past, you wouldn't know who is your party nominee until the official voting at the convention. But we don't do that here anymore, right? But they still want to keep somewhat of the tradition.
Under our procedural rules, 2 Democratic candidates submitted nominating documents to our convention secretary for the office of President of the United States. Each candidate has provided names of individuals who will make nominating and seconding speeches on their behalf.
So that's why they had Bob King, former president of an auto union, to nominate Bernie Sanders.
I'm Bob King. I am honored to nominate Bernie Sanders for president.
And AOC was basically saying she's too supported Bernie Sanders, which she did before she moved on to endorse Joe Biden. Just like how Jacqueline Brittany, a security guard, nominated Joe Biden, and then Chris Coons and Lisa Blunt Rochester seconded.
But in the short time I spent with Joe Biden, I could tell he really saw me, that he actually cared. That's why I nominate my friend, Joe Biden, as the next president of the United States.
It's my honor to second the nomination of my good friend, Joe Biden.
So this had no impact on Joe Biden's nomination whatsoever. So why some misunderstood Democrats attack AOC for what they thought was her sabotaging or snubbing Joe Biden? Other young and progressive Democrats were more pissed at the fact that she had 60 seconds to talk, showing that Joe Biden didn't take the young and progressive movement seriously, having to start there up only for a short historical play.
Welcome to night 3 of the Democratic National Convention.
The third night of the convention was better, with the appearance of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. I actually like Hillary Clinton's speech. It was short and straightforward, to the point, easy to understand. I think she learned from what she did in 2016 that somehow helped elected Donald Trump.
And don't forget, Joe and Kamala can win by 3 million votes and still lose. Take it from me. Take it from me.
This is probably one of the most underrated speeches of the convention. Clinton stressed that voting is not just voting for your ideals, but for the very real people who might be affected by the policy of the current administrations. In other words, this election is not about you. It's about the people around you. And the elections have consequences. The second highlight was a speech from Obama. Like his wife, Barack Obama did give Trump the benefit of the doubt when he first took over the White House.
I did hope, for the sake of our country, that Donald Trump might show some interest in taking the job seriously, that he might come to feel the weight of the office and discover some reverence for the democracy that had been placed in his care. But he never did.
I haven't seen anyone insult someone in such a respectful manner. This is really good. The last highlight of the third night was Kamala Harris, the vice presidential nominee speech. To be honest, to me, there is nothing revolutionary on that stage aside from Kamala Harris' personal identity. Sure, she was the first African American, Asian American to stand on stage accepting the nomination for vice presidency. But her political identity is well known among us if you follow the US politics, you know. The fight against systemic racism, sexism, social injustice, get Trump out of the White House are the common themes of the Democratic Party platform. But what does she uniquely bring to the table? The speech lacked substance. It dwelled too much into her personal life and her biracial roots, her growing up with her mother being a single mom, which, to be honest, I don't care. She still left many questions unanswered, like when she said she believed some Biden's accuser that he touched them inappropriately, but now she's standing by his side, praising him. That might make some people scratching their head. Probably the Democratic Party is trying to use Kamala Harris' personal identity to attract young and progressive voters because of her historic profile with many firsts. First Black, first South Asian, first female vice president nominee. But will that work? When young and progressive voters care more about policy regarding social injustice, climate change, universal health care, free college tuition, raising the minimum wage, and we didn't get to hear much of that from the VP nominee. Moving on to the last night of the convention, the highlight of the night was, of course, the star of the convention, Joe Biden. This is the speech that everyone is looking forward to. Like, just come out and say you are accepting the presidential nomination already. But after 10 minutes into it, I was like, its speech was too long. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to prove the point to Donald Trump.
Here's a guy doesn't talk. Nobody hears him. Whenever he does talk, he can't put two sentences together. I don't want to be...
Apparently, this guy can speak for nearly 25 minutes long without even mentioning Trump's name. Not even once.
He's failed to protect us. He's failed to protect America. And my fellow Americans, that is unforgivable. As president, I'll make you a promise. I'll protect America. I will defend us from every attack, seen and unseen, always, without exception, every time. Look,
okay.
I understand.
I think I kind of forgot what he was saying already. And I think with most people who have already determined who to vote for this November, either him or Trump, this speech won't change their minds much. I believe Biden and his campaign know that. This speech is more like a statement about what the party is about and what it is going to do to resolve the current state of the nation. Biden did name 4 major problems that America is dealing with.
And now history has delivered us to one of the most difficult moments America's ever faced. 4 historic crises, all at the same time. A perfect storm. The worst pandemic in over 100 years. The worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The most compelling call for racial justice since the 60s. And the undeniable realities and just the accelerating threats of climate change.
It was almost identical to Bernie Sanders' speech just 2 nights before. It highlighted the obstacle and the challenges that the Democratic Party set out to tackle in the upcoming year if they get to be in the White House. But will this resonate with the other half of the country? I don't know. Well, for one thing, I can tell Biden was being really sincere when he talked about how he understood what it was like losing your loved ones. Just a few years ago, Biden lost his eldest son, Beau Biden, to cancer. And maybe many of you didn't know this, but he lost his first wife, an infant daughter, when he was in his 30s. He was a single dad for a while before marrying his second wife, Jill, a few years later. Biden's speech actually got praises from both left and right-wing observers. Even Fox News commentators were complimenting his speech. Another thing, I know this video is quite long already, and thank you so much for watching it until now, but you can't watch the convention without reading its platform. The cool thing about America is that after defeating your political opponent, you guys don't have to hate each other. You guys actually can work together. In this case, after defeating Bernie Sanders, they did a smart thing. He and Sanders and their teams worked together to build the party's platform. He did this lest he would lose the support of Bernie Sanders' base. And actually, you will know more about the party's strategies and action plans from reading the platform rather than just watching the DNC itself. I will include the link of the platform in the description box. So my last comment on the DNC is that looking back at the 4-day convention, the messages that they had will be able to reach Vietnamese Americans or Vietnamese in Vietnam, because simply the Vietnamese American are not their main target. They didn't even mention China during the 4-day convention, even though the very pandemic that is raging America right now was originated from there. But Trump, I think he's definitely gonna bring it up at the RNC, the Republican National Convention. I think the problem is that the DNC is still stuck in the mindset that their enemies are Trump. Their enemies are the Republicans and Trump supporters. And I'm afraid the Republicans are way past that. The enemies are more than just the Democrats. It's China, an external threat. And by clumping the Democrats, the left wings, to the communists and socialists, by calling Biden China Biden, Republican voters will perceive this election really differently. And I think many Republicans, or particularly Trump supporters, they don't care about a presidency with decency and moral compass anymore. They just want to win. They just want someone to take away their fear. If it's not the Middle Eastern Islamic terrorist, it's the Chinese virus, what they call it. The Democrats keep saying Joe Biden is a decent man.
He is a profoundly decent man.
I don't think that's what the Republicans care anymore. Being a strong man is now more important than being a decent man. Apparently, that's what works for half of America. Well, but on a positive note, if you actually read the Democratic Party platform, they did mention China a lot of times. Specifically, Democrats believe the China challenge is not primarily a military one, but we will deter and respond to aggression. We will underscore our global commitment to freedom of navigation and resist the Chinese military's intimidation in the South China Sea. So there's hope for Vietnamese American voters and Vietnamese in Vietnam if Joe Biden becomes the president of the United States after November. And if you want me to explain more about the Democratic Party's platform, let me know in the comments, okay? Last but not least, this is something about the convention that I particularly like, and I want you to get this. If you notice that throughout the entire convention, the people like Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris constantly reminded people to text.
If you text VOTE to 30330, we'll help you.
Text VOTE to 30330. What is this number, you might ask? Well, if you're in America or if you know someone in America, ask them to text. What's gonna happen is that the number will then ask you for your zip code, indicating the state and the district you are in, and then it's gonna send you detailed instructions on how to register to vote, either in person or by mail or from overseas, so on. I really like this because I do believe voting is a right. And this really shows that they go out of their ways to make sure you have all the information you need to practice your voting rights, just at the tip of your fingers. Isn't that amazing? So that is my recap for the Democratic National Convention of 2020. So what about you? What do you think about the convention? Let me know in the comments, okay? And see you next week after the Republican National Convention. Bye.